Hi, this is Dr. David Klein with Stages of Life Medical Institute, Longwood, Florida, at your service. And what we're going to talk about now is something that you hear a lot about. Very few people really understand it, and fewer still understand the depth of what immunity implies. For purposes here, immunity means that the body has some resistance. Keyword is some, to a particular pathogen that's a disease. Could be virus, could be parasitic, it could be bacterial, could be toxic. As a resistance. Okay, now resistance doesn't mean that you have pure protection from anything. So what does immunity result from? Well, it results from exposure, either learned through your particular life. A good bit of it's genetic. We pick up genetic immunity, and it's becoming more and more understood. And then you have environmental influences, something called epigenetics, that influence immunity. So, wouldn't you know, what appears in the air, appears in the stomach, and appears in the bloodstream may or may not trigger an immune response. And then some people, things that you're supposed to see, trigger an immune response, and you have something called autoimmune disorder. I'm one of those individuals. Does it really matter? And the answer is yes. So what does immunity imply? What it implies is that a very significant portion of your protection, your armor, is working or not working. Now you look at your skin. That's a fairly good barrier, but from your innards to your outside, don't you think? It's an awful lot like a screen door. Things go in and out of your skin without you knowing that it happens. It's supposed to be that way. The skin is the largest organ of detoxification in your body. So it sweats things out, it vaporizes things out, and it keeps out molecules of certain size, but not other size. Smaller things typically just kind of walk on through your skin without even you knowing that it happened. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. You can handle things and become poisoned. Cyanide's a great example of that. There you are in the gas chamber, taking your last look around. You hold your breath. It doesn't matter whether you do or you don't, because the cyanide goes through the skin fast enough to kill you. Pesticides are very much the same thing. Aldrin, dieldrin, these are the sorts of things that were killing farm workers. It's the way it works. So what do we care about immunity as it pertains to the current crisis, the COVID crisis? If you're going to be listening to this in the future, guess what? The United States came to a grinding halt because of a virus. Okay, that's kind of cool, actually. Are we going to bounce back from this? Of course we're going to bounce back. The country is largely immune to many processes. Look around. If you see what society's doing right now, it's not unlike what your body is doing when you're fighting off an infection. First thing you do is you hunker down. Okay, the temperature's going to change. Things are going to heat up a little bit so that the immune system works a little bit better. You fight off the infection or you die. There are going to be countries, there will be companies that are going to fail as a result of this, in spite of the money that's dumped on them. You cannot dump water on a dead plant and expect it to come back. You cannot dump money on a dead business and expect it to come back. It will not happen. That's life. Somebody dies, you might be able to do CPR, but if you come in 20 or 30 minutes, I don't care what you do, it's not Frankenstein. It's not that kind of a movie here. This is reality. So what is immunity all about? So your body has cellular immunity, the white cells. They generate all kinds of a response. You'll see pus on your skin if you have an abscess. It's interesting how this works. You talk to folks with AIDS, these T cells and killer cells and whatnot. It's fascinating, but you also have what's called humoral immunity, which are antibodies. These are chemicals, proteins generally, and they fight off infections, and your body takes time to actually generate these particular cells. These particular cells that then generate the antibodies. Okay, so things take time. Things can be overwhelmed. So what does it take to render somebody immune to an infection? Number one, they have to be healthy enough to fight it off. So folks that are not so healthy, folks that are older, they have underlying illnesses of certain kinds, tend to die off faster. So we were expecting folks with obesity and diabetes to be the first to go. Really, as it turned out, folks with hypertension were probably the worst of the bunch. It has to do with something called ACE2 receptors. This is where the virus enters the cells. Most of your immunity is not in the bloodstream. It's actually in the gastrointestinal tract. 80% of your immune system is in the GI tract. Most people don't pay any attention to this at all. Why do you suppose so much of it is in that GI tract? Because you're eating garbage most of the time. In order to keep you from dying from your lunch, you have to be able to fight off the infection as it passes from the inside of your gut into the bloodstream. That barrier from the innards to the outers in your stomach, it's 1 cell thick, okay? 1 cell layer thick between your intestines and your bloodstream. Doesn't take very long to damage this. So take really good care of it. The immune system, generally, there are 2 different types of antibodies for purposes here. That's IgG and IgM. We're not going to talk about IgA or IgE, not important. But IgM and IgG are necessary to understand immunity to COVID. One is an acute response, the other one is a more chronic response. This is what we're going to be seeing and measuring in the not too distant future so that we can figure out how long people are going to be immune or resistant to the disease. It may only be 6 months, maybe 3 or 4 years, it might be 7 years. Nobody really knows. If it's like the rest of the COVIDs, it'll probably be 2 to 3 years. How do you know if you're one of the lucky people? By measuring the amount of the antibodies in your bloodstream. And these are technologies that are being introduced as we speak. I'm looking at a machine right now that'll do this. Okay, $1.2 million. So I'm debating whether or not I want to invest the next 30 years of my life, and I'm 65, to pay it off. Sometimes you have to do these sorts of things because it's the right thing to do. Now, immunity also implies the size of the inoculum that you get. Okay, why is it that some people are dying and some are not, even though they're otherwise healthy? Why is it that air crews right now, you don't hear too much about this right now, but air crews, these are your captain, your first officer, the flight attendants, are dying in droves from COVID. Okay, a lot of job opportunities for those fields after this is over because of the size of the inoculum these people were exposed to as they were flying. You're flying in a cigar tube. And so it doesn't take very much for somebody in the back to infect everybody in an airplane. You got to be really crazy to fly in this environment. Are they going to be bringing it back? The answer is yeah. I'm going to wait personally a month or 2 before I fly anywhere. That's just the way that it's going to go. The size of the inoculum. So you got to be very, very careful how you're going to expose yourself. So we have these things called masks. Okay, why do these things work? Now, a virus particle is very small. It'll blow right through this. Okay, it doesn't give you very much protection. Okay, what does it do? It holds back the majority of the spit that you generate when you're speaking. Size of the inoculum is what it's all about. So a little tiny particle here or there will fight it off just fine. It's when you end up with a large slug of this stuff that you've got an issue. So be very, very careful considering immunity. Just because you have an antibody to COVID doesn't mean you're immune. Just because you have made it thus far doesn't mean you're not going to trip on the home stretch. So watch immunity. What do? Okay, I enhance it by doing several things. One, I'm not really big into social distancing. I should be. Okay, but in my culture, you hug. So it's very, very hard to me to get away from it. But what I do is I take colostrum, which is gamma globulin. They're antibodies. They've proven to work for cows, cats, dogs, humans, mammals. What's the difference between a non-mammal and a mammal? Mother's milk, which contains colostrum. This imparts immunity to the calf or the young'un. So I take it now more than ever. I was taking it at bedtime because I have issues with colds and whatnot, because I'm in contact with everybody, but now I'm taking a good deal more of it. It imparts a lot of immunity with regards to influenza and other airborne illnesses. Licorice root contains glyceric acid, which is an antiviral. Incredibly useful stuff. If I'd known about the combination of lactoferrin-containing colostrum and licorice 30 years ago, I would have been a whole lot healthier and probably a lot better doctor. Instead of giving people because they demanded it, I want an antibiotic because I have a sore throat. Okay, most of those sore throats are viral. So every time you've received an antibiotic for viral illness, it has shortened your life. Feel good about it now? Every time you've taken an antibiotic for a viral illness, that means unnecessary, it has changed the immune system in your gut by changing the bacteria in your gut. Most of the DNA in your body if we took all of your DNA and put it in a bag, 98, 99% of it is actually bacterial DNA in your gut. These are the hangers-on that are running your immune system, and you're going to kill it with a Z-Pak. So you have to be very, very careful about asking for something dumb like an antibiotic, because you think that you might have strep throat. I can look at you and tell you don't. You don't look septic. You don't have the nodes in the right place. So you got a sore throat. Postnasal drip, allergies, guess what? We're going to cripple you by giving you antibiotics just to get you out the door. And that's the sad part about a lot of doctors, is they really want to get you out the door. Okay? You come in, yeah, you got sore throat, fine. You want an antibiotic, knock yourself out. I'll give you a fight, okay, because I'm not doing anybody any service by trashing their immune system with antibiotics. Now, let's say that you're looking at a ventilator, and somebody has one of these big tubes coming for your throat because they're going to put you on, and you've got to make a decision. Do you want that Z-Pak? That doesn't sound like a bad idea right about then. But if you're walking around thinking, I don't know, maybe it'll give me some level of protection, it's exactly the opposite. The immune system. If only you could be immune from bad judgment, okay? This is Dr. David Klein, Stages of Life Medical Institute, and that was immunity. Have a nice day.